moment that Rich knew his career was over. The story of how Rich got to this precise point in his life is nothing short of unbelievable. The only way to understand how Rich's career ends is to understand how it began. Rich grew up in Atlantic City in the 90s. He wanted to be outside and play as a kid, but his mom was worried about him getting into trouble or being a victim of crime in the city. In Rich's own words, it sucked out there. Rich's grandpa had a solution. He was the first person in the family to own a computer, and he helped Rich set up his first computer game, The Land Before Time. Then in November of 2004, a game was released that Rich ended up falling in love with, World of Warcraft. Rich no doubt loved the expansive world building and stories within the game, giving him countless hours of escapism where he could make new friends from the comfort of his bedroom. But Rich couldn't stay there for long. When Rich graduated from high school, it was time for him to go to college, and he got into a pre-med program at NYU. This is a prestigious university in New York City and costs a small fortune to enroll for a year, but it worked out because Rich's parents were supporting him financially to get through school. Once classes started, Rich made a friend named Ethan. Ethan sat behind Rich in philosophy class where Rich would play WoW on his laptop during each lecture and Ethan would watch. The two would talk about the game and it gave them something to do during the mind-numbing lectures. This continued until Rich's parents fell on hard times, so hard that their house was foreclosed on by the bank. Rich's parents weren't alone. Approximately 1 in every 54 homes in America.
Yep, this was real. So dude is, I guess, the same age as me, basically. So I'm 33. I'll be 34 in a few days. And yeah, man, foreclosures in 2008, 2007, the market had went up. I'm not going to fake it with you. My mom was in real estate. So dude, life changed. I went from having this nice chill life in California, from her owning multiple properties in Missouri, and my brother and sister having like 700 credit scores in 2006 and stuff, you know what I mean, before they even got out of, they were getting out of high school and just into college at Cal State Northridge and where it was, Cal State Northridge and UCLA. And yeah, I went from having, thinking I'm about to have this awesome, crazy credit score and all this money and etc. to the nada, to nothing, because it hadn't changed. You know what I mean? That was it. Start foreclosures and everything was changing. So
received a foreclosure notice that year, and 2.6 million Americans lost their jobs. The entire financial system was on the brink of collapse. Today, we know this as the Great Recession of 2008. To Rich, it meant that he couldn't afford school anymore or even a place to live. In the blink of an eye, he had gone from a promising pre-med student to a dropout living on the streets of New York. Rich's future didn't exactly look bright, but even though it was a rough time, he pressed on. He ate donuts and pizza that shops threw away, and he describes this as a pretty formative time in his life. This went on for a couple years until Rich got a job with a new company called Instacart. All he had to do was buy groceries for people through the app and deliver them, and they paid him $40 an hour for this. He did this full time and spent all his free time during the day teaching himself programming, watching streams, and learning as much as he could. He was able to re-enroll at NYU and decided instead of the medical field, he wanted to go back to the hobby that had brought him so much happiness as a child. He studied computer science and creative writing. Rich wanted to make video games. This gave Rich access to NYU's Game Center, a cutting-edge department that offered development tools, workspace, and collaboration. A lot of times this collaboration looked like Rich challenging the other students in the Game Center to matches of StarCraft. Not long after re-enrolling, Rich decided that college might not be the best use of his time or money and dropped out. He started working on a mobile game, but it wasn't complete yet, nor was it making him any money. His once lucrative job with Instacart lowered his pay to $8 an hour. Rich knew he was going to be homeless again if he didn't make a choice. He could try to find another high-paying job, or a job that was going to help him meet his goals in life. One day when thinking about this question, Rich ran into his old friend Ethan on the street. Ethan said he was working at Major League Gaming, a professional and growing esports organization. He told Rich he should come apply for a job. The next day at MLG's office, Rich showed up for his interview, and thought he recognized the interviewer Will from somewhere. Most of the questions were to see if Rich had technical knowledge about how to produce videos or streams, and he answered honestly that he didn't know about any of that. At the end of the interview, Will said, "Didn't I play StarCraft against you at the Game Center?" Rich immediately remembered where he recognized Will from and said, "Yeah." Will replied, "You got the job." Rich loved the job so much that he would stay at the office all day and night.
That's the way of the world. It's not always about what you know, sometimes it's who you know. He's like, wait, you look familiar. Play StarCraft against your ass. That's right. You got the job, my boy. You got the job.
night learning new things. He often slept at the office, casted over VODs, and made videos that he knew would never see the light of day just to practice. He was completely in love with the work. He started to dream of being a caster. He had finally found a goal that he truly cared about. Not long after Rich started his new job, Chris Puckett, a caster for MLG at the time, walked into the room and said, "Does anyone know any local New York talent? I'm getting married and I need someone to cast the Rocket League Grand Finals." Rich said, "Chris, can I try it?" And Chris replied, "Yeah." Rich had never casted before, and now he was casting the grand finals of the Rocket League Tour at MLG. Rich was extremely nervous, but found comfort in the fact that he had a veteran caster, Benson, working alongside him.
Feel free to tweet out at me and Ben if you think anyone...
At Tinkerbell, at Benson_EU.
My Twitter is at Richwcampbell, and yours is?
At Benson_EU.
That's the Twitter. I am not named Tinkerbell.
From that moment on, Rich Campbell was a caster. Rich quickly found that there wasn't enough work since casting typically only happens for larger events, at least casting that can pay the bills. He started taking any work that any of the other casters didn't want to do. In fact, he would do just about anything for work. Rich started casting World of Warcraft events along with Call of Duty. Rich still loved talking about World of Warcraft and got an idea to start a podcast where he could do just that, co-hosted by his friend and streamer Hotted89. They called it Allcraft. Their first episode featured an up-and-coming World of Warcraft streamer called Asmongold. After they shot the first episode, Asmon said, "So what time next week, boys?" After inviting himself to co-host the podcast, the three of them hit it off. Asmongold quickly became Rich's best friend. Asmon's stream really started to take off after this, and so did Rich's casting career. Rich got into a relentless weekly work schedule. Rich would cast Call of Duty every Tuesday in Ohio, and then stream for as long as he could after the cast was over without sleeping. Then Wednesday early in the morning, he would get on a plane to Las Vegas, sleep on the plane, and then when the plane landed, immediately go cast H1Z1 for the H1Z1 League. Then he would get back on another plane, sleep on the flight back to Ohio, and cast Call of Duty again. Thursday, he would leave casting half an hour early, Benson would close the show while Rich went to record that week's episode of Allcraft with Hotted and Asmongold. After Allcraft, Rich would stream as long as he possibly could without sleeping again. Friday, he would sleep, Saturday and Sunday, Rich casted World of Warcraft, and Monday, he would go back to New York City and do his job for MLG, making weekly videos and content. Gradually, Rich started making connections in the gaming industry and getting paid directly from Blizzard, the company that made World of Warcraft, who recognized the value in having a consistent caster that viewers liked. Rich also started to get invited to host larger events, like the South by Southwest Gaming Awards in 2018. South by Southwest is an annual convention that happens to take place in Austin, Texas, where Asmongold lived at the time. The night after Rich got done hosting the event, Asmon invited Rich to go to dinner with him. While there, Asmon brought his friend Esfand. Esfand and Rich hit it off that night, and Esfand became one of Rich's best friends. Esfand didn't stream on Twitch yet, and Asmon had only just recently gotten his sub button. The trio couldn't have guessed how fast all of their lives were about to change. Within a year, Asmon was averaging 20,000 viewers on Twitch, Esfand started streaming and was pulling 2,000 to 3,000 viewers and growing, and Rich was casting some of the biggest esports events in the world. Along with Rich's increased profile came greater scrutiny. Rich was an outspoken critic of new changes Blizzard was making to World of Warcraft, which created some friction between him and the company. If he was just a streamer, this might not be a huge deal, but he was on Blizzard's payroll, and to many, he was the face of the company at most of their large events. One clip in particular caught Blizzard's attention in a bad way.
Take a break, Richard? You realize I was in a great mood? And I played the game for 5 minutes and I'm here. I don't need a break. I need to uninstall WoW. This is a game made for anyone who's playing. Look at you, idiot! Look at you idiot! Why are you playing this game? You fucking dumb shit! You fucking moron sheets! You fucking idiots! You dumb. Why are you playing this fucking shit? You morons running around like ants in Bobby Kodak's maze!
In early July 2020, Rich posted a video on his YouTube channel called No More Commentating, Here's What's Next.
There was a period in time where if you went on the World of Warcraft Twitch channel and you randomly scrolled through, chances were you might bump into me. And to call that an honor doesn't even do it justice. I mean, it was a dream come true.
Rich had been fired, but this wasn't the end of Rich's time in the public spotlight.
I guess after what, 6 years of being a commentator, I'm not one anymore. Pull that band-aid off.
Sheesh.
I guess I'm a streamer now.
I remember this happening. 'Cause I ain't even paying attention
Which also
to
means I'm now kind of an idiot. Streamers are so dumb.
Facts.
To support his move to becoming a full-time streamer, Rich moved to Austin. The city had a growing group of streamers at the time, and most of Twitch's biggest personalities lived there. But most of all, it would let Rich be close to his friends Asmongold and Esfand. With much less casting and hosting in his life, Rich had time to really lean into streaming. But just living in the same town as his friends wasn't enough for Rich. In October, Rich, Asmongold, Esfand, and their friends Tips Out and Mizkif made a huge announcement.
Originally, it was just really Rich and I. We had been doing Allcraft at that time for a couple of years together, and we become really good friends. And we wanted to do something more that gave us the opportunity to hang out more and also to work together more. And so we came up with this idea of making an org and building the org around our friends and building the org around friendship in general.
The five of them had founded a brand new streaming organization and called it One True King, or OTK for short. OTK was different from a traditional esports org in that they didn't focus solely on putting together teams to compete in events. Instead, they thought of themselves as a lifestyle brand and media production company, not bound to any one game or category on Twitch. The broad focus allowed the group to cover any games or gaming events they wanted, but World of Warcraft still held a special place in Rich's heart. Rich and Asmon continued to produce the Allcraft podcast together, and OTK participated in and hosted several WoW events, with a lot of community support. This is going to be the best WoW event ever. OTK are literally the heroes of the community. Can't wait. 2020 was a great year for Rich with the founding of his new org and his stream gaining over 140,000 new followers on Twitch.
He makes me better. He makes me smarter. He shares things with me. And everything that I do, when I do it with Asmon, I have even more fun. I would literally have him around at every single part of the day. That's what friends are for. Of course I wish I wanted to have sex with him, because then I would f the shit out of him right after we hung out.
In August of the next year, OTK passed Luminosity Gaming to become the most watched streaming organization in the world. They had pulled over 25 million hours of viewership in the previous month alone.
Whoa, let's see them charts, bro. Hours watched ranking. OTK. What is damn Luminosity, TSM, RNG, Cloud, FaZe. It's crazy that FaZe be getting the most hype, but I guess it's kind of hard to watch shooters for that many hours when there's no story or anything going on. You're just literally watching a shooter for hours and hours. So yeah, that'll get kind of dead quick. Anyways, this is the halfway point in the video. I've been streaming for 12 minutes. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to watch part 2 of this because I'm not about to bust out a whole 20 minutes of this. Come on. Stop playing. Watch the part 2. Subscribe. Like. Let's go. Okay? That's part 1. That's part 1. Subscribe.